Welcome to the third AMA. I have a bunch of questions here to answer, so I shall get cracking with the first question. Party Crasher asked, or said, I would love to hear an overview of the current development stage, what's complete, what's work in progress, etc. So I have been working on this for almost about 3 years, and it occurred to me in the last sort of month or two, when I was spending a lot of time on the volumetric clouds, that I've been working on everything in isolation. So I worked on the flight model, I worked on the terrain, I worked on the livery editor, I worked on the Sidewinder missile, so get my first missile working. I worked on the main menu user interface. I worked on all these different things, but I worked on them all in separate projects. And I realized, okay, it's time to bring it all together. So what I'm doing now is I'm bringing all the elements of the terrain, the flight model, everything into one project. So I can basically go from what is effectively a bunch of technical demos into the beginnings of a game. So I've set myself a personal deadline that by the end of this month, I want to have everything in the state it's in brought together. And then by the end of the year, I want to be flying. I've said a Cessna. I know it seems like, why would you do a Cessna when the F-18 is kind of the focus? But I want to fly a Cessna around Saba Island on the Steam Deck. That's sort of the personal goal I've set myself. But what is complete? I guess arguably nothing is complete. I mean, you could argue, is anything ever complete? Who was it who said a piece of art is never completed, it's abandoned? I think that definitely applies in game development as well. But what is a work in progress? Everything's a work in progress. The clouds obviously was the thing I was working on prior to what I'm doing at the moment. So yeah, it's all there, and I feel like I've started everything. There's a bit of everything is now begun, and now it's a case of, all right, so I've got all these ideas. Now I need to prove there's a game. I've got to prove that I've got something fun. So it's not just about Microsoft Flight Simulator, the old one, Microsoft Flight Simulator X. For me, it was very much a case of I get to fly a plane. And that was kind of it. There was never really I never felt there was a purpose, if you like, or a driving reason to do it, other than you get to fly a plane, which is cool. So I think the one thing I feel like I haven't touched on in terms of development is the gameplay, to prove there is a fun, something that makes you want to do it more, to get better, to improve, and to test yourself. So that's really the focus of the next step. So yeah, so it's not the best answer to the question, but nothing's complete, everything's work in progress, but I'm getting there slowly. Party Crasher had a second question, which I've reduced down to without repeating what was in the first question. Basically, it was, when's the release date? Now, I expect to spend the most of next year on the gameplay, so adding the story, adding the network play, adding the game modes, adding, and I'll talk about this a bit more later, the mini games and all this sort of thing, and the different aircraft and all the different elements that go into it. So at this moment in time, I am tentatively aiming for release at the end of next year. Now, I know that's very vague, and you guys pretty much know me already that take it with a pinch of salt. It's software development, and it's just me being me. So, but yeah, I would like to aim for the end of next year. I know my wife would like me to have it finished and get something out because of how long I've been spending on it, but I'm working on it. Okay, that's question 2. That was the progress section. The next question is, the category I gave it was personal. The question is from Party Crasher again, what aspect of your game are you most proud of at this stage of development? I think that the flight model, of all the stuff I've worked on, the flight model is the one that I spent so much time reading books on aerodynamics, on flight models, on flight simulation. I've also read books that aren't necessarily about the science or the physics, but more about the experience and pilots and them talking about what it's like. And I think that my flight model is good. I'd like to say it's very good, but that's just my opinion. When I get to fly more with it and try the different aircraft and set up new aircraft and see how they fly and so on, then I'll know more. But more importantly, when I put it in someone else's hands and get their feedback, which is going to be equally scary and equally important, then I'll know for sure if it's as good as I hope it is. Moving on. I'm taking too long. I apologize. All right, the next question. So we've gone into a new section called game modes. And another question from Party Crasher. He says, do you have plans to implement some kind of mission editor or, dare I say, a dynamic campaign to help with the longevity of the game? So yes, absolutely. I definitely want to have a mission editor. And I've been thinking about this a bit myself, thinking, what if the tools I create to make the story missions, I basically make them user friendly enough that they can go into the game. So, or as a separate program, maybe I haven't decided on that yet. So people can make new missions using the same functionality that I use. So that's definitely an option. But even if I don't do that, there will definitely be a way that you can say, right, I want to choose the theater. I want to choose the mission parameters, whether it's air to ground, air to air, both, or just something else. Could be interception, whatever. Something, close air support, all those sort of things. And I definitely want to have that. So there will be a mission editor for certain in there. As for a dynamic campaign, now I would love to do that. I think it would be a fantastic thing to add. It definitely won't be in the initial release because I think it would be one of those things that needs much more time and planning and implementation. But I'm definitely not ruling it out, and I would definitely like to look into it. But I think what I want to do first is I want to look at all the previous flight sims that did a really good dynamic campaign, and I'd want to learn as many lessons as possible from those, and then figure out the best way I could approach it. So Mav asked, will the minigames be included on release? So for those that don't know, I've talked in the previous videos, I think, of having little arcade minigames that will be available from the main menu. And to give examples of what I'm thinking of, one of my favorite games from the late 80s, early 90s in the arcade was Thunderblade, Sega's Thunderblade. And I must admit, the reason I was first attracted to it was because in the arcade, it wasn't just a stand-up cabinet. You actually sat in like a very primitive, but I didn't care as a kid, cockpit, and when you moved the joystick, there was movement of the actual seat, so it was more than just an arcade game. And then of course it was released on Master System, Mega Drive, and of course it wasn't as good because it was the home console version. But anyway, the point being, in it you flew a helicopter through skyscrapers, through a city. I'm assuming it was very much inspired by Blue Thunder. Even the helicopter they used looked like Blue Thunder, which was on TV back then. So mini games like that, where where it's definitely an arcade game, not worried so much about realism, but more about just instant fun and replayability. So to answer the question that Mav asked, I want to have at least one of the mini games in there for release, but because again of time and not wanting development to go on forever, what I'll do is I'll get the game out and then hopefully go back and add more. I mean, I'd love to do my sort of homage to Afterburner. And Afterburner is one of those games that obviously I loved it as a kid because it was an F-14. It was clearly Top Gun. But when I've replayed it later, I realized actually in terms of gameplay, it's a bit meh. It's a bit too simple, if you like. But again, I kind of want to do a homage to it and just have you flying with basically infinite ammo and just, what do they call it, like a wave shooter these days, that sort of thing. So I would like to experiment with it and see if I can make something that is fun and worthy. I think the Thunderblade element, that's easily doable because I think, if I've got a helicopter and I've got San Francisco, you've got everything you need to basically do a little Thunderblade homage. So I think that would be the one I could try and do first because I'm more confident that I could make a fun game out of that than an Afterburner homage. So there you go. All right, moving on. So we're into a section which is just called aircraft. And Party Crasher again asks, how in-depth are the aircraft systems in comparison to DCS's version of the F-18C? Will there be a written manual or guide? So I think I've said this before, but I'll just for those who may not have seen previous videos, DCS is obviously an incredible simulation and it's so detailed and they've done such an amazing job. But at the same time, it's quite... I just read Orsic comment. At the same time, it's overwhelming. So when I got DCS, which obviously is free on Steam, and then I bought my favorite aircraft, the F-15, when it was on sale. Obviously, not made of money. And then I thought, great, I get to fly an F-15. This is amazing. And then all I remember, and I'll never forget the experience of booting up and then just be like, well, how do I start the plane? And it was so intimidating. And then I realized I basically had to read the manual to fly. I just want to fly an F-15. I want to fly my favorite plane. And it was such an anticlimax, because I was like, oh, I don't want to have to learn everything. I just want to fly it. So the point I'm making is, I want Supersonic Fight to be that what I wanted to get when I bought that F-15 for the DCS. I want to be able to immediately fly the aircraft that are in the game. I don't want you to have to be familiar with all the switches and buttons in the cockpit. Basically, as long as you've got a joystick and a throttle, whether it's an actual HOTAS system or you're just using a joypad or whatever, I just want you to be able to fly. However, at this stage, when I was implementing the F-18 cockpit, I did do a good job of making a lot of the stuff functional. So, for example, the multifunction displays and all the buttons, because I was testing it in VR. I made sure all the buttons were clickable on the multifunction display. Not all the buttons in the cockpit. I didn't get that far, but I did get to the point where you could interact with the actual multifunction display and the system as it's meant to work according to the NATOPS manual. And I did have that working. So the point I'm making is, I will make it so it is in depth, but I will not require the player to know any of it. So for those who want that depth and want that immersion, they will be able to press a lot of I don't want to say all the buttons, in case there's some which is like either too complex or just too unnecessary. Bottom line, there will be a lot of depth, not DCS level, because I don't feel the game needs that. That's not what I'm trying to do. Because if you want that level of immersion, that level of detail, that's where you go to DCS. So the second aircraft question is this one's from the only question I was asked on Steam, a guy called Michelangelo. And he said, I'm interested to understand how good the tutorials will be. I've lost my position. Hold on. I'm interested to understand how good the tutorials could be to jump in and learn the complexities of the fighter. So this goes hand in hand with what I was saying. I don't want it to be too complex. I want you to be able to say, right, I've got my Xbox controller. I've launched the game. I click on free flight, and I want to be flying a plane immediately, or even if I'm on the runway, I don't have to press 1,000 buttons. I want to take off. I want to fly. Gameplay. Mav asked, will there be an LSO to help you land? So for those that don't know, an LSO is a landing signal officer. So when landing on a carrier, there are people at the, I was going to say rear left, but the aft port, the port aft, back left. So they're there. And there's usually several. I don't know the exact number. There's always at least 2 or 3, maybe more. One of them is usually on a I say phone, it's not a phone, it's on a communication device, speaking to the pilot, and they have a pickle in their hand. And the pickle is basically, I think I'm right in saying that's the thing that is, if they press the button, it instantly says it's a wave off, so that all the lights go red. The pilot knows they have to, for whatever reason, abort the landing. One of the LSOs will always be facing down the runway, because their job is to check for foul deck to make sure no one has wandered onto the landing area, or any possible thing has happened that causes the actual landing to be aborted. And if you watch any of these videos of where there's like black and white footage of a plane coming down to land, and if they have the voiceover, you'll always hear the LSO talking, saying things like, you're a little high, and it's always, it's always calm, because the last thing, given the stress of the situation, the last thing you do is, you're doing it wrong, because it's like, that's not going to help. But yeah, so the LSO is usually there just to give you verbal feedback and say, maybe you're too fast, too slow, whatever. They're just, and especially if you're landing at night, zero visibility in bad weather. I've been reading so many books recently about, I had the Blue Angels book and I had the Top Gun book, and they all talk about how the most scariest part of their entire career was landing on a carrier at night in bad weather. And, these are people who were in wars, in dogfights against SAMs, and none of that came close to that scariness of those landings. So, yes, to answer the question, Mav, yes, I do want to have LSOs, and yes, you will hear their voice over your headset, in the game. There will definitely be a game mode in the game which is just carrier landing. So it will literally just be, you can choose the difficulty. You can choose whether it's calm sea, clear day, bright, brightness, everything is a perfect landing, easy case. Or you can go all the way to the extreme, and it can be awful weather, visibility is almost zero, landing at night, worst case scenario, just as I was describing in the books. So, and you will definitely be wanting the LSO there to reassure you that you're doing it right. So yes, there will be LSOs. And this question from Mav leads very nicely into your boy Roger's question, which was, will there be the emergency net, aka the barricade or spaghetti, on the carrier? Will it be in the game? Will it be part of the story? And as your boy Roger said, many games neglect emergency procedures, but that's when you put 100% of yourself to the task. Absolutely. And again, I've kind of touched on this with what I was saying. Having read all these books and these pilots talking about their experience and what was the scariest part. And of course, I can't help but think of Top Gun Maverick and the F-14 and him losing the front gear and having to crash land with the barricade. I absolutely agree. Now, will it be part of the story? Maybe. It depends on whether it serves the story. So, for example, I think if you play the story game and maybe for some reason you took off and you have damaged your landing gear, then yes, you will land with the barricade. But in terms of will it be something you have to do? I don't think so in terms of the story, just because I don't think that's part of the story that I've got in mind. However, this game mode of challenging you to land in different circumstances, definitely you will definitely have to land with damage to your aircraft and with the landing gear not working or something, or no hook, whatever, something will force you to have to use the barricade. So yes, it will definitely be in there because it's so cool, and I want to do it. And why shouldn't I just add more stuff to make the game take longer? It's like, you know me by now. All right, next question. So that was the aircraft section. No, that was the gameplay section. No, we've got one more gameplay from Orsic. Orsic asked, have I considered destructible props and terrain? I have definitely considered it. There will definitely be destructible props. I've been looking at different ways of doing that. Obviously, you can manually create so if you've got, let's just take, for example, a building. You could manually create the building in such a way that it is designed to be destroyed and it falls apart. I've also looked at assets on the Unity Asset Store that take any kind of mesh and will allow you to procedurally destroy it in some ways, which I think which works well with things like glass and simple objects, maybe like a wooden building or something like that. Not so good with complex structures like skyscrapers and so on. I'm going to ignore that question. So yeah, I've definitely considered it, and I will definitely have something in there. So I don't just want things. When you fire a missile on it and it hits the target, I don't just want there to be an explosion and the thing is just maybe turned black. I want it to be more in depth than that. I want there to be more to it. Okay, so we are into what I've called the quick fire section. Pew pew. So I'm going to keep these answers nice and short because they are just very quick questions. Most of them are from Orsic. So the first one was, consider destructible props and terrain. Yes. The second one was, is there an Easter egg about the danger zone? Not yet, but there probably will be. Next one. What was your New Year resolution and how long have you stuck to it? Do you know what? I can't even remember what it was. It was probably to release a game, which technically I did because I released Boxed Out on Quest. So yay. Do I have a New Year's resolution for next year? Try and release Supersonic Fight. Gives me 12 months to try and hit that one. Okay. The flanker dude, he asked, and he literally just asked SU-37 question mark. And my answer is refer to previous video exclamation mark. Mav also asked, how's your day going? Very well, thank you. And Orsic asked, what flat or VR games are you currently playing? Okay, so last night, this is going to be a slightly less than quick fire answer. Last night, I started playing a new VR game called Forefront, which is on early access on Quest. I don't know if it's on PSVR at the moment. Might be, maybe it will be later. It's by the same people that made Breaches and Hyperdash. So they've got good pedigree on the online games. And Forefront is basically Battlefield 1942. So if you've ever played Battlefield 1942, it's a Quest version of that, and it was actually really good fun. I was playing with my friend Scott. I got to fly a helicopter, which was pretty much the main thing I wanted to do. I never got to drive a tank, but anyway, that's the VR games. In terms of flat games, Darkenstein, which is free, is basically a cross between Wolfenstein and Doom, and it's good fun, really good fun. I've enjoyed that, and it was free. How they managed that, I don't know, because it's worth money, quite frankly. All right, so moving on. That's the quickfire section. Granted, that last question was not very quickfire, so I do apologize. Okay, story. Mav asked a story question. He said, is the squadron in game, if the squadron in game is still 138, VAQ 138 Yellow Jackets fly the EA-18 Growlers in real life. Will the squadron be renumbered, or will we be able to fly Growlers? So this panicked me a little bit, because I thought, oh no, I've called my squadron the VFA 138. Does that mean you can't have VFA 138 because VAQ 138 exists? But then I was relieved when I did a search to find that VAQ can have a same number as a VFA, and they're not the same thing. So I was like, oh, thank goodness. So I am happy to say that my squadron is VFA 138, which means that no, you're not playing as VAQ 138. And thankfully, because I made sure that VFA 138 doesn't exist, so I chose a fictional one. But to answer the question of whether you'll get to fly EA-18 Growlers, it's not something that I was planning on doing, but that doesn't mean I can't do it, because it is, the EA-18 is basically for those who don't know, it's like the electronic warfare version of the F-18. So it's got lots of lovely technical stuff on there that allows it to support the other aircraft by jamming radar, etc. So will that be something you play as? Here's the thing. And again, I'm speaking personally. That's not an element of the gameplay that I feel like I would want to do. It's not. I want to shoot stuff down. I want to fly fast. I want to do that. It's a support role, and maybe in online play that would be good, because then someone is flying that, gives supporting the team. Great. We're on to a new section now. That was story mode. We're on to the section of weather. There are 3 questions under the category of weather, and the first one is from Orsic, and the question is, or he asks, more details on the weather system and how it will serve as a gameplay element. So once I'd written the story mode for the game, and I had all the missions, I realized that half the missions take place in one location, San Francisco, and the other half take place elsewhere. And for those ones at the start, I thought, well, it would be nice to have some variety, so each mission is different. And I think for that reason, the weather can be a huge part of it, because it will affect the difficulty of the mission. So, and also, I want to do the Hollywood thing of where the weather very much can reflect the emotional theme of the story at that point. So, for example, when everything's tickety-boo, it's beautiful, clear skies, maybe a little bit cloudy, Pixar clouds, and you can see for miles. Then when things get a little bit darker, both literally and virtually metaphorically, it's nighttime, it's dark. Then the fog comes in. Now it's scary. So I think the weather system can be very much an emotional tool, just like it is in Hollywood. So I will definitely do that, and I will the theme of the game at that time, i.e., where you should be emotionally, will be reflected in the weather. How much detail will we see with volumetric clouds and weather? Will it be like Black Racks, KSP mod, thunderstorms, storm structure, fog, etc., or a simpler system? So I spent as you guys probably know, because I do my dev AMAs, I spend a lot of time on the clouds already, and it got to the point where I was getting concerned with how long I was spending on it, because I wasn't happy with the quality I was seeing at the time. I did get to a point where I'm confident that I have something that I'm content with, but I can definitely do more. So to answer that question, at the moment, it is a simpler system, but I hope by the time the game is released, it will be at least some way on the way to because I saw the video that you're referring to of the KSP mod, and it looked great. I mean, it looked fantastic. So I will strive for stuff to be as good and as complex and as interesting as that. There's one more weather question from Orsic. He said, will there be rainbows? What about double rainbows? And what about God rays? Yes, there will be rainbows. Yes, there will be double rainbows. There are already God rays. There you go. Quick and to the point. I should have put that in the quickfire section. We're on to a single question now on the question of world creation. Orsic again asked, do I use pictures of San Francisco as a reference for my rendering? For example, they may have specific sky hues, cloud shadows, or who knows what under their latitude and longitude, even the moon crescent. Now, when I implemented my moon rendering code, I think I may have mentioned this on the on the dev blog. I found these algorithms for how you can calculate the orientation of the moon as it would appear from Earth at a particular GPS latitude, longitude. And so I implemented that, and then I verified it using third-party tools on the internet to compare my moon to the ones that I saw. You asked an interesting point there about San Francisco, and you referred to the sky hues and so on. So I did some research into this to see if is the sky does the sky basically look the same to everyone from everywhere on Earth? And based on what I learned, and again, I could be wrong, but I think the answer is yes, it is pretty much the same, but obviously it's different every day depending on aerosols, pollutants, weather, the amount of moisture, all these different things. So of course it looks different. And while one night we get a pink sky, one night we get no visibility at all these different variables. But in terms of latitude and longitude, apparently that doesn't have a huge effect on the appearance of the sky. I do use a lot of photos of San Francisco and a lot of reference. I'm very aware that they could all be post-processed differently. So I have to keep that in mind when I'm thinking, do I want to match that exactly, or just do I want to get the feel of that? So that's my answer. Hopefully that answers the question. Have I answered all the parts? Cloud shadows, yes, already done. There are cloud shadows. I'm quite proud of that. So basically, this is when I was working on the volumetric clouds. I had the volumetric clouds, I had cloud shadows, I had God rays, all part of the same system, and I was very happy with that. So hopefully they'll do a good job. Okay, I think that's that question. So I talked about the moon. Okay, tick that one. Next one. Okay, so a question from Dirty Bong about peripherals. He asked, will the game have native integration for bHaptics? Now, bHaptics, for those that don't know, is basically, I don't know if it's a range of things, but it's the sort of thing where you wear like a vest which has force feedback, vibration, and so on to give you that sense of immersion. And here's basically my answer, like, oh, so wait, are you saying I have to buy a bHaptics just so I can support it with the game? Oh, well, if I have to, my wife can't complain now. It's for research / implementation. So will it have native integration? I mean, I will just have to get one and see if it's something worth doing. But yeah, anything like that, any kind of peripherals that people want support for. I mean, I'm well aware, there are some peripherals, perhaps they're not as mainstream as others. For example, up there, I don't know if you can see it, at the back there, I've got one of those eye trackers behind my selection of HOTAS, which are all there ready to be tested and set up. But I got one of these reflecting track IR thingy what's. Now I haven't used this yet, so I'd never personally experienced the whole eye tracking or head tracking to see it. And I guess I'm spoiled because I play in VR, so I'm used to just being able to look and experiencing it. But point being that I know a lot of flight sim enthusiasts use that, and so I want to experience it so I know what it's like and see if it's for me. And B, I want to support it because I want people that bought that, they go, oh, I wish there were more games I could actually use it with. Great, I'll give you a game that you can hopefully use with it. So yeah. Or a question about marketing. Again, I'll repeat it just in case so I can edit it down. I show pics every week. I try to. Do I keep a gallery for the press kit, and do I have vertical pics on the phone? So when I share pictures each week, at the moment, very rarely do I share a picture that I think this is a representation of the final game. This is what I want people to see. So like this picture you see above me, this is sort of the new image I use on the Steam store. And I'm so glad I did it because I didn't like the old one at all. And every time I saw it on the store, I was like, oh, I need to fix that. And then once I captured this shot, I was like, that's better. That's more like it. That captures the feel of the game for me. But I keep thinking to myself, well, everything I do, it's like the game, it will look better than this. It will look better than this. Because, for example, as I was saying this to, I think it was Jaded. If you look at this picture right now, the actual plane is not reflecting the environment around it. And I know exactly why that is. It's just because I hadn't yet written the code that draws my sky into the reflection cube. And I've done that now, but I just need to go back and I need to recapture that shot. So it's little things like that. And every time I do something, it's like, oh, that could be better. This could be better. So I do keep the pictures and I do have a folder of images, but for me, it's always like, oh, but it could be better. And that this is kind of my problem, is that it's like, oh, it's not quite good enough. I wish it could be better. So, and do I have vertical ones? I do have some, but I'll make sure I do a better job of having vertical ones for the phone as well. So I will do that. And especially as we get closer to release, then it'll just be more and more and more every week. Okay, penultimate question. Here we go. So the last two questions are about Steam. First one is, do I aim to make use of Steam Early Access? Now, I may have already answered this in a previous one, but I'm going to say it again just because it is a good question. This was Party Crasher asking. I do not intend to use Steam Early Access purely because the following reasons. One, you only have one chance to make a first impression. Two, I've bought Steam games in early access, and most of the time I have been disappointed. And there are examples where games stay in early access for years, and that's fine. But I think most of the time, I guess on the one hand, for some it's like, oh, I need to get something out there, I need to get it out there. But at the same time, it's also a case of, well, I'll get it out there, and if people don't buy it, then I'll lose interest, because now I'm thinking, well, what's the point? And I'm aware of that possibility. So I just think, no, I'm going to have a game. I'm going to get it to the point where I'm happy. People around me are happy that you guys are saying, yes, it's ready, release it, and then add to it and improve it and add all those extra things in. So that's my answer. No, I do not intend to use Steam Early Access. Final question, and then I'll let you all go. Question is from Ortic: will Supersonic Fight run on the Steam machine and the Steam Deck? And I'm going to add to that, and on the Steam frame. So the Steam Deck is going to be my minimum spec machine. I want to play my game on the Steam Deck. So I will be making sure that the game is playable and readable, because with my eyesight, I struggle with some games. I'm there going, I have no idea what this is. And I can't be bothered to find the zoom combination of buttons to zoom in on bits of the screen. But yeah, the game will be playable on Steam Deck, and I will make sure I add options to make the text big enough if there's text, and everything in it has to be playable with that machine. For that reason, it will definitely be playable on the Steam machine, because the Steam machine is 6 times more powerful than the Steam Deck. So yes, it will be playable on the Steam machine. And finally, will it be playable on the Steam frame? So the Steam frame, for those that don't know, is Valve's new VR headset. It is intended to run any game that runs on the Steam Deck in your headset, either VR or flat. So it is more powerful than a Steam Deck, and more powerful enough to run both images of a Steam Deck. So it will also be playable on the Steam frame. Now, obviously, there'll be two ways of playing Supersonic Fight on the Steam frame. One will be you install it on the headset and you play it completely standalone with no connection to another machine. Obviously, the graphics settings will have to be lower to run at a good frame rate. Or you use the VR headset, just like you can with the Quest or any other VR headset. You use Steam Link, or you plug it directly into your PC, and you stream the game from your gaming PC, which means you can have a much better graphics options, and you play it like that. So yes, it will run on all of the new Steam hardware. And I think that is it. I want to thank you all again for joining me. I want to thank you all for the support that you show me on the Discord. And honestly, having you guys is the best thing in the world, because I feel like I know who I'm making my game for. And I, as I told you guys, some stuff which I will be cutting out so people won't know. I'm going to leave that bit in though, so the people who watch that bit of the video, they'll be like, oh, what? Wait, so I missed something. Then they might actually join next time. But yeah, I'm so grateful for you guys. So thank you all very much.